Just when you think NFTs can't possibly get more idiotic and egregious, they somehow do. NFTs have been rife with theft, among many other things like crimes and scams and cons and you name it. Theft of digital assets like artwork and music, you name it. And now we're at a point where companies have the audacity to think that they can take other people's video games and turn them into NFTs and profit from other people's work. This was all reported by news outlet Vice. All credit goes to this article titled, "Crypto Company Turns Games It Doesn't Own into NFTs, Quickly Deletes Them. Claiming a game has been abandoned doesn't give you the right to start selling it on the blockchain." It turns out this company claimed, well, we thought we'd be able to because these are abandonware or freeware, games that have already been given out for free or games that haven't really been updated all that much and have kind of been abandoned, but the license still belongs to the people and the company who made the game. But they figured, well, you know, we can probably just take these and sell them off and nobody would notice. But companies did notice and started issuing DMCA claims. So here is the paragraph that kickstarts everything. As recently as last week, the Retro Arcade Collection, is what it's called, was dubbed a set of NFTs meant for preserving abandonware games on the blockchain. In practice, that meant playable demos for games like Blizzard's Blackthorn and Remedy's Death Rally had been embedded into NFTs without any authorization by those games' rights holders. A week later, following inquiries from Waypoint, the NFTs were removed after some NFTs got reported. The license seems to check out for the purpose, but didn't want to get dragged into any debates as that's not in the spirit of the collection, said Rasheen Mansour, founder and CEO of Metagravity Studio, the company behind the collection. This is what they said in a statement to Waypoint or Vice when they reached out to him. As such, we have removed all the games and changed the NFTs now to mint passes for our upcoming NFT native retro game. They did eventually remove all that stuff, but out of the kindness of their hearts, no. If they had any kind of kindness in their heart, then no, that's just wrong, plain and simple. They did it because they knew they'd probably get into some trouble. Now, the end result to all of this is very important to highlight. If you claim the NFT that once played Blackthorn, it no longer plays Blackthorn. NFTs will have you believe that you own the thing that NFTs are pointing to, that this digital receipt is pointing to. But the second that that connection is severed, guess what? You're out of luck. In this case, because this company was forced to take down their NFTs that stole other companies' games, that NFT is no longer linked to Blackthorn. The receipt says you own Blackthorn, but guess what? You don't actually own it. That NFT actually no longer plays the thing that it's supposed to play. What I'm trying to emphasize here is that if you own an NFT, you don't own jack. You just paid for the blockchain. That is more akin to like when you could buy a piece of the moon, but then that company went defunct, so you got the receipt for the piece of the moon, but you don't actually own anything. That receipt no longer means anything anymore. This is kind of like that scenario. Vice then details more of how this situation came about. On April 22nd, the Retro Arcade Collection launched to demonstrate Metagravity's ability to embed playable software within an NFT. It worked too. It was janky. Getting the browser to recognize my keyboard was a pain, but it worked. Before they were taken down, I played demos of Death Rally, Blackthorn, and even the 90s arcade shooter Total Carnage in my browser. And this is something that was described by this Twitter user. Hey, this NFT collection, warning link is to the OpenSea marketplace, seems to be selling DOS games packaged with the DOSBox emulator, probably without the permission of the original authors. So they're selling these emulated collections essentially for things that they don't own. They announced this NFT endeavor via this tweet that reads, "Retro Arcade is fully revealed. Retro Arcade NFTs are playable by everyone." They never clarified, however, whether they had the permission to do this, whether they partnered with these companies that actually owned the license to these games. It wasn't clear, however, if Metagravity had the rights to publish and sell these NFTs. Retro games seem like a perfect fit for much of crypto's cynical brand of exploitation, but there was no word of any partnerships, and Metagravity was using the term abandonware, which specifically implies that a game company has left the game behind forever, but no longer updating or paying attention to the game does not equate to the company giving up the rights and their ownership of that IP and that game. Right here we have a quote from the CEO of this company, Mansour, who explained how all of this would work and how all of this would fly. The team has curated the list of games we use so that we stick to freeware mostly, and in some cases, game demos that, again, don't belong to them and that they never got permission to mint as NFTs. It has been quite tricky to validate the status of a lot of abandonware, but we have gone to lengths to try and ensure we're using freely distributable versions of games. So their excuse was these games that we never got permission to mint as NFTs that we're profiting from, they're either already abandoned or they're already being given out for free, so it doesn't seem like it would harm those companies for us to take those games and use them for our own profit. But I mean, like, that gives you no excuse to profit off of other people's work. And it's important to note that freeware, stuff that's distributed freely, there's purpose behind why those games are distributed freely, either because those companies genuinely want people to just be able to access them and download them for free because they're, you know, super old games that they just want to give away, or for potential promotional purposes to garner more positive PR and to maybe just bolster a certain IP with an older game with a new entry coming, whatever it is. Companies giving games away for free doesn't mean permission to use them for your own profit and to act like you can just do whatever you want with them. They're just meant to be played without people having to pay anything for them. And that's as far as that goes. They're not giving away these IPs and licenses and giving companies permission to take these games and, like, do their own thing with them and, you know, make a business out of them. Mansour's statement continues, we'd have liked to preserve abandonware more broadly, similar to what a lot of abandonware sites are doing, but wanted to err on the side of caution on this. We also added a DMCA form on our site so copyright holders can request takedowns if any of these are not okay to host. None of those were okay to host, and a number of companies did, in fact, eventually start issuing DMCA takedowns. Now, Mansour tries to spin the angle when it comes to abandonware that it's all about preserving those games, but there's a difference between trying to preserve games and trying to profit off of the preservation of those games that don't belong to you. If your intention truly is to preserve games, then you wouldn't be selling them as NFTs and trying to turn them into investments and trying to profit off of them. You would just be preserving them. Now, at the time, meaning last week when Mansour provided this quote, Mansour said nobody had asked to have a game removed, but as more game companies became aware that this was even a thing, slowly but surely, this individual and this company did start receiving DMCA takedowns that eventually led them to have to kind of abandon this whole endeavor. Vice then walks us through what is abandonware versus what is freeware. Abandonware refers to software, games or otherwise, that are no longer supported by the companies that made it. Freeware is software being distributed by the creator without charging money. Now, they consulted with a few lawyers to see if this NFT company could do what they did legally. The answer is no. Abandonware is not a legal concept under US law. Copyright protection continues for the works up to the end of the term provided in the Copyright Act. Putting a game or other creative work on blockchain doesn't change its legal status. If the game was subject to copyright protection, that would still apply. This is just common sense, if you ask me. Take Death Rally, for example. Remedy actually released a freeware version on the game's 25th anniversary. They did this as a favor, as a celebration of this game's 25th anniversary, and as a way to celebrate the franchise, as a way to draw attention to the franchise, but they weren't saying, we are relinquishing all rights to this game. Everyone can just do whatever they want with this IP. They were just saying you don't have to pay money to have access to this game that still belongs to Remedy. Making Death Rally free does not mean giving up the copyright. Remedy can still make a new Death Rally game if it wants to, or if they choose, start charging for the game again down the line. Who knows? Yeah, they have the right to do that because this game is theirs and nobody else can start charging money for this thing that doesn't belong to them. When reached out to by Waypoint by Vice, Remedy straight up said, we didn't even know about this. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. We were not aware. We didn't sanction this. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Epic Games founder and CEO Tim Sweeney didn't know that some of Epic's licensed games were being used in this manner, and responding to Anthropy's tweet here that I previously showed you guys, Tim Sweeney said, thank you for sharing. Definitely no Epic permission there. And then scrolling further down, Tim Sweeney straight up said, we'll pass it along to the legal team and see what they can do to have this stuff taken down. Here's another lawyer who spoke about this situation. A lawyer specializing in games said, just because a company is offering a demo or freeware version, or if it's abandonware, it doesn't mean they don't have copyrights in it. Copyright gives the owner exclusive rights to control duplication, derivative works, and most other uses of the copyrighted work. and last for over 100 years in most cases. Again, you'd think this is basic common sense. Here's a developer, specifically Night Dive Studios Director of Business Development Larry Cooperman, who also spoke out and said, if you keep your car in the garage for a really long time, I can't just take it. It doesn't matter if your perception is, well, this individual never uses that car. I've never seen them use it once in 10 years. Still doesn't give you the right to go ahead and steal it and profit off of it, does it? Night Dive Studios did file a DMCA over the listing, prompting the NFT's removal. Around this item, Metagravity announced this phase of its NFTs experiment was over. Eventually, they were like, all right, this is clearly not working out, because they're going to draw the ire of these companies who are like, what the hell are you doing with our games? We did not give you permission to do this. This is what Mansour said on that front. We have proved the point of the tech demo and going to focus our efforts on the next phase of the tech innovation for playable machine code NFTs. We think NFTs as a means for distributing modular, interoperable game code have enormous unexplored possibilities that will surpass even what we saw with the shift to mobile gaming. Everything about this paragraph made me want to vomit in my mouth. None of this sounds like there is good intentions behind it. It all just sounds like trying to use NFTs to just pave the road for shitty business tactics. Metagravity is also actively developing a play-to-earn MMO called Edge of Chaos. Late April, it announced that Retro Arcade 2.0 would include remakes of iconic retro games using our original IP delivered as the first truly native NFT games. That's what they tweeted about. And look what they're showing in this tweet. Example of original Warcraft sprites restylized. Basically, they're saying we're going to take somebody else's homework, change it a little bit, and then put it out there, is what they seem to imply with this tweet. It just seems like you're saying we're going to sell NFTs that are knockoffs of these other classic games. As Vice pointed out, Metagravity shows sprites from the original Warcraft before showing how a proposed spin-off from its in-development NFT MMO would be stylized after Blizzard's revolutionary strategy game. When concerns, to put it lightly, were raised that Mansour and his company seemed like instead of directly stealing games, they were just copying off of them, this is what Mansour said in response. Perhaps you're right that remake is poor wording. The graphics, story, and gameplay are all being created from scratch, so we'll rather be inspired by classics but be something quite new. Have you tried just like, I don't know, flexing some creative muscles and just coming up with your own thing and then just not selling them as NFTs but just selling them as video games? You don't need NFTs to sell video games. We've been selling video games digitally and physically for decades now without the need of NFTs. Adding that extra layer of NFTs serves no purpose but to turn these games into investment opportunities instead of just the products that they are, fun forms of escapism. Companies keep advertising that NFTs offer these incredible new solutions for problems that we didn't have solutions for, except existing technology has a solution for everything that companies claim NFTs will pave the road for. Nothing about what companies claim NFTs will open new doors to is something that isn't achievable through existing technology that's better and less environmentally harmful and less rife with crimes and scams and cons and you name it. And in this scenario, Metagravity is saying, oh, we're not copying, we're just getting inspired and then making something new. But in your tweet, you directly talk about how you take assets from Warcraft and just change them up a little bit. You're literally just copying, changing slightly, and then pasting. So that doesn't give me confidence that whatever games you output from this will actually feel, look, or sound original. To close things off, Vice emphasizes that Metagravity announced its retro games would no longer be playable. So people who did purchase these NFTs, guess what? All you have now are the receipts pointing to nothing, because that connection has now been severed. All you have is the receipt, but you never owned those things the NFTs claimed you owned in the first place. This whole notion that NFTs grant you true ownership over digital assets, it's all an illusion. And nothing proves that more than this whole situation where people who bought these NFTs no longer have access to those games because the MCA takedowns led to this endeavor that wasn't permissible to falling apart. So I'll repeat what I said again in my intro, as if NFTs weren't idiotic enough already. They got that much more idiotic and egregious with this latest situation, with the silver lining being that this endeavor fell apart like a house of cards, and I'm glad to see it. Any bad news for NFTs is the best kind of good news, and let's keep NFTs out of video games completely, because clearly none of the intentions behind it are any good, and nothing that they enable is something that isn't possible with existing technology that is less exploitative and less rife with shady shit like this. That's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the latest failed NFT endeavor, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.